Hey everybody, I hope you guys are having a great start to the new year. A lot going on out there in the world right now. I know a lot of people are concerned. I know a lot of people kind of perplexed. I know I am. Um, I think that's some of the things we're going to kind of talk about in the state of the store for this month. And we obviously have quite a little bit of material to talk about. Kind of to start things, though, we're going to be changing the format of this year. Instead of me just doing a little YouTube video with a link, we're going to do a podcast. We're super excited about it. We're going to start probably next month. We'll have a variety of topics. We'll hopefully bring in some guests throughout the year. So that you can ask some questions and you guys can go and get some feedback and we can have discussions that are relevant to you and what you want to know from Wilshire, from our staff, about the industry, kind of taking the state of the store videos that I've been doing here for a while and kind of amplifying it and giving more back to you. So just be on the lookout for that. We're going to go into, it'll be released through all of your, wherever you get your podcast from, you'll be able to go and access our podcasts. We're super excited about it. And we're looking for you. Please go and take and provide feedback on some topics of interest that you'd like us to discuss and talk about. I think really the big thing that we start with for the state of the store really is a state of the industry to kick things off this year. And I think everybody is understanding what's going on. We're going through what may be our fourth round of what appears based off of just general trends, numbers, the stuff that we're looking at, the fourth wave of panic buying in a year. And this is obviously disconcerting on a multitude of levels. When you have supply and demand disruption like we have, no one can make enough. No one everybody's over consuming. You can't get enough of what you want when you need it. And this drives people to go and panic even more. I mean, at least it's something productive like firearms and ammunition that we're panicking about as opposed to toilet paper rolls. So, I mean, there is that. We progressed in a year. The big thing to kind of look at is just what is the market doing? How does that respond to availability? And the truth is the market is so convoluted still. We have so many new entrants into the market. At the same time, we've got all sorts of missed signals to the manufacturers. They've been kind of hanging back to a degree to figure out which way things were going to look for their long-term forecast for demand and supply requirements over the next 3-4 years because of the election. Things are kind of starting to break loose. We're getting larger shipments of guns in. So before where we would place an order for 100 guns, we'd get 10. Now we're getting 25 or 30 at a time out of that order. So slowly the fulfillment rate is going up. Ammunition remains incredibly scarce. We have our back orders are continuing to generate, but basically where I'm ordering ammunition that I know I'm not going to see for 6 quarters. So I'm actually limiting my ordering because that's really, I don't know what the market's going to look like a year and a half from now. And that's what we're forced with. That is of grave concern for us because we're being asked to to play Nostradamus and predict what the world's going to happen without a whole lot to go off of. And that's kind of a scary proposition when we're having to commit to these orders that far out. But we're doing it, and we're trying as hard as we can, like always, to get stuff in. And the real question a lot of folks ask, where does this end? Well, I don't think we're really going to know that until we get through tomorrow, which tomorrow is going to be the 20th. We're filming this on the 19th, so it's Inauguration Day. And then from there, what it's going to look like with the incoming Biden administration. That really is the next big question. And so that leads us into the major subject for this discussion, which I'm going to try to do in as brief, for me, that's saying a lot, but a brief kind of overview of what does all this really mean on the federal government side, and how is this going to impact us, that ammunition, firearms, etc. I've heard a lot of people come in and a lot of stuff going on. They're just going to sign away and get rid of guns, or they're going to do and it speaks to a lack from, I think, most of our citizenry. Is there is just a lack of understanding of civics in general, and more importantly, just how the workings of the federal government actually work. So, I mean, we afford it more power than it really should have, and part of it we do willfully, and part of it we do out of ignorance. So we just need to talk about that collectively real quick. And again, I'm not a huge expert. I will admit, I'm not a policy wonk. I never walked down K Street, but I did live in D.C. My family hails from there, and I'm a transplant from Mordor on the Potomac out here. So, and I escaped that life for a reason, because I cannot stand it, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to forget everything that I learned. So on that end, what I kind of put into levels beginning 1, 2, and 3, what are the easiest ways to implement changes to the firearms industry that this incoming administration can choose to do? And the first begins obviously with executive orders. But in order to understand that, we really need to know what EOs are, and we don't want to give them more power than they really have, right? So what happens is Congress will pass a law, the Gun Control Act of 1968. And within that law, it will specifically tell the executive branch, which they're charged with the day-to-day running of the government, how to implement the law. But they give them wide discretion. Part of that is filled with rulemaking. And those rules are what you saw back just a little while ago when people were seeking out comments on the pistol brace ban. Those comments, it goes through a process to get there. The other kind of big piece of that is it gives the president a wide swath within their power, taken from the Constitution, and then really put on steroids. Maybe some of it's constitutional, maybe some of it's not, but through the years, they've done it more and more, where the president can sign an executive order that basically tells the agencies and tells the executive branch, you will do this. The law says this, you will execute it this way. And that's what an EO is. Can the president just rewrite the law and ban something? Well, the answer really is question marks to some of it. Most of it, no. It's going to require an act of Congress to actually change many of the laws. But the government can basically choose to reinterpret how they're executing the laws, and that can have serious effects. One of the biggest pieces is when it comes into what could potentially be an importation ban. So we get so many of our bullets and guns from overseas that are imported into the United States, parts kits for AKs, etc. Now, to do that, they go through a very specific process. The importation restrictions can be put in place because we've always given wide deference to the executive branch, and the president in particular, to set the conditions for importing goods, setting tariffs in many ways, and also to go and take and control immigration. For instance, during the Trump years, we had the Muslim ban, which was put in place to prevent immigration from several designated countries where we potentially thought that terrorists and stuff were going to come into the country from. That was a prerogative of the executive branch. Congress afforded it under the law, and that was how President Trump chose to execute his power. Importation bans can occur almost the same way, where they can basically say, look, you give us wide deference. We don't believe that Berno pistol or an AK parts kit has a sporting purpose, and therefore under the 1968 Gun Control Act and subsequent action we have that defines sporting firearms, we can just say no more ammo's coming in. You can't have any more 5.56 223 ammo. You can't have steel cased ammo. Whatever they come up with, they can do that to a degree, and that could affect supply, lowering it, thus increasing more prices and making it harder to get stuff, which may very well be an intent and purpose. Something to watch. So really, executive orders are something that is the easiest for the executive branch to quickly change. The second big piece is through appointments. In your appointments process, you're going to come in, you're going to have a lot of agencies that will have political heads that are chosen, and the president has the ability to nominate, and the Senate must confirm them. The things to really look at is who's actually going to be nominated for Attorney General through the Department of Justice. It's going to be a critical piece. And then we're going to see whether or not, particularly on guns, is who the Biden administration will go and choose to go and take and be the head of the FBI, if they want to go and take and change, and more importantly, who they nominate, if they nominate, for permanent head to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the BATFE, which is, of course, our regulator and one of the largest regulators of the firearms industry. That seat has went unfulfilled for many years simply because no one could agree on somebody who wasn't too contentious. But when you have a much larger Democratic component, if not sheer outright majority in the Senate, you tend to go and make appointments a lot easier. So that's one of the things that we'll look at. If you go and see somebody who is very considered anti-gun taking over as the head of the ATF, that's a real signal of where they're going to want to take policy. So it's something to watch. Contentiousness is also a bad thing, because if you leave without a permanent head, the people that are running the agency day to day are the career bureaucrats that exist there. Your GS, upper level GS, 14s, GS 15s, your senior executive service, your SES folks. Those are the folks that are not politically appointed. Their positions are there based off of their seniority, and most of them have been there and have been appointed, rode the coattails of one political party or the other. In particular, in the ATF, it's heavily filled with large levels of left-leaning folks who are in the higher levels of the agency. That's just the way it's structured, and that was the way it was kind of created. It's unfortunate that we have to look at it through that lens. You would think they just want to be a regulator and do their job, but they don't. And there is a political piece and a component of political power to this every single time. So it's a very important piece, because with the bureaucrats, you don't have as much control than if you did a single executive head. The third piece is, of course, is going to be congressional action. So Congress can obviously pass laws one way or the other. They have that option. You have the House, which is controlled by the Democrats, and generating and passing pro-gun bills will be difficult from there. But then what you also have is the issue in the Senate. So what you may actually see is anti-gun bills being generated out of the House and then going to the Senate. Well, previously, when you go and you take and you have enough folks, the Senate has its own little rules. And one of those that a lot of people have maybe heard over the last several months is a concept called the filibuster. And so what the filibuster is in many bills in the Senate, in order to close debate and allow a vote for action on it, you must achieve 60 votes to reach what they call cloture, right? So that allows you to stop debating, and so you can actually take a vote on whether the bill will pass or not. That currently is still the rules that both the Democrats and the Republicans agree to. However, there's been a lot of movement to eliminate, eradicate, or weaken the filibuster. One of the ways that already exist is a process that this is where we get really kind of in the weeds, but it's important to understand, in particular when it comes to a lot of the firearms piece, is you have a process known as reconciliation. In particular, budget reconciliation in the Senate. What that basically says is if the bill has something to do with generating money, adjusting the national debt, or a spending of some kind, we can pass it without having to go and get a filibuster. So you can pass it with 51 votes. Well, the Democrats currently have 51 votes in the Senate. So therefore, if you can go and articulate that a bill has something to do with revenue generation, money, spending, it can pass through the budget reconciliation process. Okay, so what do we have in the firearms industry that has to do with revenues to the federal government? Well, that's right. Every firearm you buy, there's the federal excise tax involved. So if it adjusts or they do something with the federal excise tax, they could go and take and do it through budget reconciliation. NFA tax stamps, silencers, machine guns, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, AOWs, SBSs. I've already said that one, but still you get the point. All of those are actually under a tax scheme, and that's why you pay a $200 tax stamp to the federal government to go and take and be able to transfer one of those firearms. That, in theory, could go and take and be amended, changed, or moved through budget reconciliation. Now, senators have the ability to object under a principle called the Byrd Rule, that goes and basically says if it's really extraneous and your intent is really to do something other than budget, you can attempt to fight it. But really that's going to come down to what the leadership of the Senate, Chuck Schumer in particular, will allow to have happen and what precedents he'll want moving forward. Those are all great questions and ones that actually do matter when you're kind of out from just the memes on the internet and the quick little quips of stuff. This is the stuff to really look at, really pay attention to, and really care about, because it's going to signal exactly what's going to happen over the next few years. And that's the stuff that we're going to try to bring in depth and better concepts to you in our podcast series. We want to be a beacon of information. I've always tried to do that in the State of the Stores. We're going to continue that and hopefully put it on some steroids with the podcast this year. But on that note, I'll stop talking. I want you all to know how much we appreciate every single one of you watching this. You guys are incredible. We really appreciate it. This year, we've seen such an amazing amount of people come through the door here versus anywhere else because they're coming through and they're desperate to learn. They're worried, they're nervous, and they come here. And they don't just come here because of us. They come here because of all of you that help them, that guide them, that shepherd them in. That is the stuff that's going to go and matter 1, 2, 10, 15, 20 years down the road by bringing new gun owners in that you have earned by being responsible and taking care of people and helping them be more informed. That is what we do here. You guys are all a part of it. We really appreciate it. Be safe, be well. God bless all of you.